Then record. There you go. If you're watching this replay, welcome. This is workshop 1 of 3. So there are more people coming into the workshop. I'm going to be sharing my screen here in a hot second. Just so you know, we have a workbook for this. If you do not, I will go ahead and share the screen. Share the link so that you can follow along. So I'm going to put it in the comments here. Let me see. There you go. So if you want to follow along, feel free to make a copy so you get to like write your own stuff because there's a lot of like prompt, there's a lot of questions. So this is going to be super dynamic. Again, you can drop all your questions in the chat. Iesha and I are going to be co-instructing this. So hopefully you're excited. This first workshop is going to be highlighting best practices when it comes to pre-campaign launch. So I know when you hear this, you're thinking, I already know how to set up in a DSP, and I will give you a quick view of AdLib, which is one of our sponsors. So shout out to AdLib. But the whole perspective is to give you I know you know how to do this, but you've also made some of these errors in the past, and this is how we want you to fix it moving forward, okay? So let's go ahead and share my screen. Yes, I know it's taking a second because I only have 75,000 of these opened, okay? But y'all know about this already. Okay, cool. Okay, everybody can still hear me pretty fine. You're good. Aisha, I see you on my screen. You're hearing me. Okay, perfect. All right, so welcome to the first part. I already did a quick introduction of where we are today, what to expect as always. Y'all know I have a lot of energy. This is why I make sure to walk while I do this so I don't give you too much, just in case, But we're gonna define some things. You're gonna have some actionable insight. I'm gonna follow up with you in the next week to see if you actually did it or if you need help with anything else. We absolutely have some shameless plug. This was not happening unless outside of our 3 sponsors. So Atomic Ads, Digital Culture Group, which we'll mention during the optimization next week or talk a little bit more about, and then AdLib DSP. So shout out to all 3 of our sponsors for allowing this to happen. And then this is a dynamic interactive workshop as always. Drop your comments, drop your feedback, drop your questions in the comments, okay? Also make sure your phone is out because we're going to have some we're going to have some QR codes, okay? So what to expect today again? If I had to recap the conversation, it would be the programmatic trader's magic. Before I can even show you anything, we really need to understand what we are supposed to do, like what we are to do. We're going to talk about campaign setup, do's and don'ts, and then we're going to do a live DSP setup, and then we're going to show you how to QA with and without automation. And this automation tool is pretty dope, so wait until you see it. I'm sure you've heard me. You're here because you're either you saw my comments or you saw one of Iesha's content on LinkedIn. But thank you all for being here. My name is Helene Parker. I am the founder and CEO of Helene Parker Consulting. We're education consultancy. And then we have a podcast called Programmatic Digest Podcast. Super active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is honestly the best way to keep track of everything that's coming up. 2025 is going to be super excited. I think I'm going to do some of those workshops at least once to twice a quarter. So stay tuned, definitely. And now I'll pass the baton to Iesha. Iesha, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iesha White. I'm a paid media practitioner. I am based in Edinburgh in the UK, but I am not Scottish, as you can probably tell by my accent. So I am the founder of Multitudes Marketing, which is a consultancy that is dedicated to democratizing paid media, in particular programmatic for that and that knowledge for buyers and brands and ad tech firms alike. Yeah, glad to be here.
Iesha has co-hosted, co-instructed a lot of the workshops with us before, and we're super honored and really appreciate you being here and pouring into the community and just following the mission. And with that being said, I just want to let you know that you got this, okay? Like I've done all of the errors we're about to tell you how not to do, or maybe you've done it before. Like Iesha, what's one of your the most horrible set up story or any horrible stories you can share with us?
So I know everyone has like one of these urban
Yeah.
legend things at their agencies or whatever, but I lived a real one. So my first ever job in programmatic and in ad tech was actually at an ad tech firm, and I was on the ad ops team, and I was responsible for actually QAing campaigns. That was pretty much the bulk of my job. And I did not catch that somebody had entered an extra zero
Oh,
in
this.
the budget line. And the buck had to stop with me because it was my sole responsibility to catch this information, and I failed. And yes, I spent um
Oh my gosh.
$10,000 instead of spending 1,000. And I remember being absolutely upset and terrified and wondering how I could have missed it. And I was so overwhelmed, and I had probably QA'd like 60 campaigns that day. Um, but there's that was over 10 years ago. There's a lot better tools now, and there's also I know a lot more. We're excited to share this sort of information to make sure you folks don't have those sorts of situations yourself.
Oh my gosh. And I had something similar happen when I accidentally entered an extra zero, but I had this happened where I underspent it. It was like 5,000 and some change, and we had to refund the money, y'all. Like, can you imagine putting a budget and then not spending maybe $1,000 out of that budget and then refunding like 90% of it to a client? How embarrassing everything out of my life. It was tough. Another mistake I've done, right? And I just posted that on LinkedIn is that sometimes you turn on the campaign, but you forgot the ad group, or vice versa. Like the ad group is on, but not the campaign. And that was a 7-day promotion. And so I'm like, oh, I QA'd this. That's cool. But I missed it still, even though I QA'd multiple times, which is cuckoo. What I didn't do that time is have somebody else QA my work, but we'll talk about this in a second. So somebody, so 5 days in out of that 7 days, I realized that that campaign was not running. So imagine just trying to spend 20K in 2 days, which is possible in programmatic, but you shouldn't do that. So even if you make any of those mistakes, and feel free to drop some of that in the comments area because I'd love to see or read y'all. But like you got this, it's okay. Your mistake does not define you. It's not part of your identity. I don't care what your boss or you did the the industry puts you into this bucket that, oh, now we cannot. No. A mistake has been made. You've learned from it, and you probably will never, ever, ever do it. And then you'll teach other people. So that's why we're here. So you got this. No questions are too crazy. No questions are too big or small. And you're in absolutely safe space to ask everything. You're not going to hear me ever tell you, you're supposed to know this stuff. No, that's not what we do here. Okay. So let's get into it. So obviously, um, most of you are traders based on the survey that I said. I mean, the sign up sheet. But some of them are not. So just so you know, a programmatic trader is supposed to manage the digital campaigns. We said digital advertising campaigns here because now we're not only doing programmatic, sometimes programmatic, search, and social. But if we had to recap it into three, you suppose, no, I'm kidding, you are responsible for setting up in the DSP. You're responsible for making sure that whatever you set up in the DSP is performing, so optimization, and then to report on it, translate. But let's really talk about what those skill set looks like. So Iesha, can you walk us through like your top four?
So top four. First, as you guys can see here on the screen, is analytical thinking. And if we're going to break that down, it's understanding how a metric may look, but then connecting it back to what that actually means for the client. So saying, well, CTR was, 1%, we're doing great, doesn't necessarily illustrate the benefit for a client.
Mhm.
Probably also less beneficial if the client's running video and you're reporting on CTR, just saying. So it's making sure that you understand the metrics in context for how they can move the client's business forward.
I love that. Oops, my bad. Going the opposite way. So number two would be,
Attention to detail. So we all know different DSPs have different levels of detail, and we'll get a real live experience in a DSP really shortly, but there's so many different items to pull and push and little buttons and settings, and things change all the time. And before you know it, there's a whole new channel that's come under the programmatic for, right? And we're just like, wow, like when I started in programmatic, we only had two, y'all. We had display and we have video. Since then, we've completely proliferated. We've got CTV, we have gaming, we have out of home.
Mhm,
There's all this sort of extra new, exciting stuff. But
mhm.
with that comes added layers of complexity, and with complexity comes detail. So making sure that we know our stuff is number one, but number two is making sure that, yes, you may have a lot of campaigns to get through, a lot of stuff to look at, but not letting ourselves kind of like get lulled into a false sense of security that, oh, it's all going to be fine. Like I've
Yeah,
done this a billion times, because losing that attention to detail is where issues really kind of proliferate.
yeah, yeah. And even if you're good at attention to details, you can still miss it. I mean, I consider myself really good at attention to details. And like Iesha would be like, yo, did you miss this? I'm like, no, how can I? I was in it the whole time. It's like super easy because your brain just gets so tired of looking at the same thing. So that's why and we'll talk about it during QA. That's why we talk about having somebody else QA, like QA your work. So attention details is definitely important, but this one is my favorite because how we all define this one differently, but how is it supposed to be?
So, so adaptability.
Mm,
And some folks may look at this and say, oh, like, maybe flexibility is another word that folks may be more comfortable with. And similar to what I said earlier, we have so many new things coming online all the time. The internet, sorry, the IAB, right, is changing specs, or the DSP has a new UI upgrade, or you're learning maybe a new channel. Maybe you've only historically run app install campaigns, but you're now learning CTV or something like that. Being able to adapt and overcome these sorts of challenges is important in programmatic, because what's hot 6 months ago may be completely passe in the next 6 months.
that's true.
um, Particularly as it relates, we always make jokes in the industry that there's always a year of something. Several years ago, it was the year of mobile, but the year of mobile ended up being like 6 years in a row. Everybody just kept saying it was the year of mobile. And now vast majority of people are consuming content on their phones, and the year of mobile, like I said, turned into a really big joke. And
Yeah.
we've got a different, set of things. Now we're all focused on the idea of attention and how we can quantify eye tracking studies with programmatic, and making sure that we're really pushing those sorts of ideas forward, and like really moving forward the idea of quality and how folks understand and perceive advertising. So making sure that you're open, you have an open mindset, and that, saying, I don't understand it is totally fine.
Mhm.
It's just that there's so much changing in programmatic. You just got to be ready to roll with it and adapt and overcome.
Yeah, I love that. I love that perspective. And finally, what can you tell us about communication? Because I feel like this is one of the things like, oh, it's on every job description. But I'm like, no, for real though. Like, let's talk about this. No pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely. So communication is absolutely key in programmatic specifically, especially as it relates to the building and the QA of campaigns. And folks might be like, well, what do you mean? I communicate with clients, I communicate with my boss. But at the end of the day, we're really thinking about how to build processes and systems that help us communicate with each other, even if that communication is asynchronous. So, for example, if I'm building out a campaign and I'm like, well, you know what, actually, I think it would be better suited if we only run pre-roll.
Mm-hmm.
But then LN
Mm-hmm.
QA's my campaign, and she's like, well, why is Iesha not let a selected mid-roll on on this campaign? That's kind of weird. Oh, that must be a mistake. I'm going to check mid-roll. But the client and I had a discussion about only doing pre-roll. But then Ellen's like, well, nothing's wrong with mid-roll. It's like this almost the same thing. Let's
Yeah.
do it. And I add it. And then we find out that a good portion of the budget went to mid-roll and the client's upset because it didn't match their expectations. You
Yeah.
might end up having a problem. So making sure that you have things very clearly outlined in these QAs, your in the documentation itself, and also literally communicating with folks when things do and if they change quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And when we do a podcast interview, I always ask the same question. I always end with, if you knew something now that you wish you knew then, what would that be? What would you tell your younger person, your freshman self? And almost 60% all say you have to be curious. You have to be curious to work in ad tech. And the other 40% all say you have to ask questions. So you have to be able to look at something and say, like, this don't look right. Let me ask about it, voice it. And sometimes we work in an environment where it's not normalized to ask that many questions to clarify. But I feel like sometimes it goes back to that person. It's like, if somebody's asking questions to you, if like my junior keep asking the same question over and over multiple times, I may not be explaining it the right way. I may need to ask for help. Here's another thing we need to normalize: ask for help. Maximize your DSP support team, for instance. Have them come in and say, yo, I just can't, I might need a little help here with this particular problem, this particular challenge, but also elevating, growing this particular person, right? And that's why we have our sponsors here. Like, they're in the chat. I think I saw Cindy. I thought I saw a couple people. Make sure you say hi to let the rest of the people know that you're in the chat if they need to ask specific question, because we're gonna go into the live demo in a hot second here. But that's one of the main thing you need to understand as a trader. So I believe now we're moving into, so we're still on page 2, right? I mean, page 3 of our workbook. But I do want you to participate. So pull out your phone, and then Iesha, you're going to share your screen really quick. Okay. So the question is, why do you think programmatic traders are critical to a brand's success? That's the right question, right? Okay, cool. So talk to me. And then she's going to share her screen to show us the answer. What would be your answer? Oh, you're going to share in a second. Okay, I'll wait. Okay, we'll give it a few seconds for everybody to start sharing. Do you have some answers yet? Okay, all
Yes,
right.
can you folks see the screen?
No, not yet.
Oh, hold on. Let me figure out what's going on.
Okay. Okay, it's loading, it's cooking. Okay, all right. So why do you think programmatic traders are critical to a brand's success? So what do you see? I see audiences ensuring, oh man, maybe it's just people are typing, they might be typing a full sentence and we're seeing words.
Yeah, it's a word cloud. So this all makes sense. And I think I can see what people are saying. So we've
Mhm.
got implementing complexity. I think that's fair. Um, I agree with folks that have listed things out like reach and consideration and awareness.
Mhm.
These items are critical. They're ways for brands to activate quickly and at scale via programmatic, maybe in ways that they couldn't really do before. It's kind of democratized advertising for quite a lot of brands.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I see folks saying hands on keyboard and executing the plan. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
It's interesting. I'm not seeing one thing that I think is very important, but it's because it has not been normalized, and it's like the number one thing I not argue about, but I'll be throwing stuff. I think from an organizational view, we have different teams, right? So let's take an example of the agency, whether you're independent agency or media holding companies, you'll have different department that do different things versus maybe the independent agency, you'll have maybe one or two people doing all of them things, right? And so the things could be you have a team that's only working in campaign manager, which is an ad survey, right? You upload. I like to say that campaign manager should be seen as like a creative and analytical warehouse, like a tracking warehouse, just to really generalize what it can do. You'll have somebody else setting up like a true trader, who we're talking about in a DSP, whether it's DV, whether it's ad lib, it's a mouthful, whether it's trade is whatever, wherever you're setting up. And then you'll have another team that's maybe QAing, or maybe that's doing reporting. And then you might have a total separate team that's even doing the planning, right? Which is pre. Some of those independent agency, you might share a few of those roles. And then you have account, and then you have sales, or maybe you have associate director. But y'all, just so you know, a trader can help keep, grow, nurture this business. I know that sales, business development can sell, bring more of this new business in, or keep, the good relationship. But if I fail as a trader at the campaign or at the KPI, and I fail at optimizing and I'm not meeting performance-wise, this business is not going to stay. It don't matter how best friend the owners of this owner and this owner are, it may not stay, or I may have to go. So it's super important that you realize as a trader, as a buyer, as a programmatic ninja, that you bring in, you nurture that business in, and that's something to be proud of, okay? So when you're in your DSP and you think maybe because you're not CES right now, not throwing shade at my people at CES, I skipped this year, but maybe you see me next year. But maybe you need to realize that your work is very, very important because you can keep this business, remain it, help it grow. And so next week, we're going to show you how to help it grow. But the following week, we're going to help you really solidify, like, as you're optimizing, how do you translate it back, which is just the reporting. Okay. So that's one. So let's go ahead and share the screen again. Thank you for sharing. We're going to have some. Okay, there it is for me. Okay, perfect. Google Chrome workshop 1. Okay, so before I dive into my live work, okay, I want to give a shout out to AdLib. So real quick, this is like the 30-second sales pitch, like, oh, intermittent. This program has been brought to you by AdLib is considered to be one of the most used meta DSP. So let me explain. It means that you're able to utilize this one DSP and have access to multiple. So over here is just one of the snippet or the snapshot of everything they have access to. Oops. But obviously you see the big names, like you can buy Trade Desk Inventory, Criteo, Yahoo, AdQuick, AdForm, it depends. And so this QR code will allow you to either get in contact with them. Again, I mentioned Cindy is in the comments. If you need any questions, and also in the follow-up emails in the next week or so, you'll have their contact information if you need more information from them, okay? So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. So this is a demo account. So Iesha, you can see AdLib right now, right?
We can see it.
Perfect, thank you. And so I like the dark, but if you guys like the bright version, this is what it looks like. So it's super, super simplified way to do your DSP setup. And actually, I did miss a step here, didn't I not? Before I can even take you into the DSP, I need to do a couple of things first, don't I? Sorry about that, guys. Do you see my screen again? No?
No, we can't see just yet.
Okay, sorry. Here it is. Okay, so Google AdLib, Google Chrome. Okay, there it is. Okay, so do you see the slide that says, but first we have to define campaign strategy? Okay, sorry about that. I skipped, I skipped an important top. Okay, before you can even set up in a DSP, I need to get through this really quick and then we'll get into the DSP. So before you can set up in a DSP, you got to understand what you're doing, right? That's what we're going to talk about the media map in a hot second. That's going to really give you a holistic, streamlined way of doing this. But you have to understand your goal. Are we selling cars? Are we opening new bank accounts? Are we selling orders? Is it a nonprofit? We're pushing for a message. Are we reaching a certain audience? What's the goal? Now, the KPI is that one metric that will determine if we're doing a good job or not. So if we're trying to, for the retail space, let's say, it could be a cost per order. So a CPA, the action is the order confirmation. The targeting could be everyone that likes chai tea, let's say, right? Or for a regional fintech company, maybe you are targeting, you could be targeting chai tea lovers, but you're targeting new homeowners to open a new checking account in this area, things like that. So targeting can be audience, it can be geographical, it could be exactly the placement. And then of course the messaging. The messaging is super important. If your message ain't it, your campaign's not gonna be it, period. That's an unpopular opinion, or maybe it isn't nowadays, because I know for a fact, if your creative messaging is not, doesn't make sense or doesn't at least matches your targeting, the KPI, or at least the audience, or even that landing page, I don't know how well, or I don't know how that campaign is going to perform. Okay. Now we can move into AdLib. Sorry about that. So I wanted to make sure to clarify this. Because very often I would talk to, I would talk to even senior traders, senior programmatic ninjas, and they all ask me like, how do I do this? Why is this not working for me? And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, my KPI is this. Okay, but what is your goal? Not sure. Okay, well, let's see. Or I'll ask like, okay, what is the creative saying? I don't know. What? You've been running this campaign, you don't know what the banner says? That's the least you go, everyone. If this is you, please go check your creative. It doesn't have to be in your job description for you to do that. Check your creative, understand the message, and then you'll be able to adjust your targeting better, propose better strategies, and so forth. So this is AdLib. I mentioned that you have access to different pipeline, right? The different DSP. I would recommend AdLib, especially for many reasons, but one of the reasons that pops into my heart is that if you have one DSP and you're trying to compare into another DSP, or if you are looking for a specific inventory and you want to compare with another inventory. But one of the reason why I really like AdLib is like, this is it. It ain't complicated. It's very much simplified and it's done on purpose. Why? Because we have enough to worry about. We have enough complication created in our industry. I mean, you alluded to that earlier, Iesha, right? Like it was the year of in-app, now it's your CTV. Maybe it was attention metrics. Like there's so much to constantly figure it out, worry about, learn about. And so our DSP has to be on our side. So if, again, going back to which DSP to ever use, if you're not using any DSPs, that's one of your decision making. How easy will it be to learn about this DSP? In addition to, cost, inventory, their magic. So you have the hierarchy, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, okay? But campaign creative, audience pixel, geofencing, geo, and then advertiser. Some DSP have what? Partner, advertiser, campaign, insertion order, line item. What else? What is I missing? And they have a lot of hierarchy, and sometimes it works, but sometimes simplifying the whole process is very, very much easy. So we're going to create a new one real quick. And here's one of my favorite part about this is that, again, not all DSP allows you to have a CBD and then a political. Like we have clear DSPs that said, we don't want a political. Microsoft, right? Microsoft did not allow no political ads. Yes, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident. I feel like the treatise did not or limited the amount of political messaging or political ads. And so that was a big deal. I mean, last year was the year of political, right? And so you could use this type of DSP to test it again. It's all about testing. Okay. So here's our drinking word, whether you drink coffee or alcohol or tea for some of us that don't drink coffee. I'm looking at you, Iesha. Testing is really important. Testing and learning, I'm going to say. And so awareness, interest engagement, maybe we can call this consideration, and then action and conversion. But I definitely like the amount of, the amount of options you have, because again, some DSP offers 3, some DSP offers, I don't know how many, some DSP offers way too much. So we're gonna click on interest and engagement for the sake of this example. And so it's, again, if you make a mistake, boom, you can come back. AdLib, this is just a partner. This is just a test account. This is a demo account, okay? Don't hold me accountable here. And so I'm pretty sure I have, let me just do this one. And then I'm gonna say HPC testing live, okay? And so this is the campaign info. Oops, sorry. And then we're gonna select next. I actually think I forgot a step, is that the cool thing about this is before you even set up your campaign, which again can be understood as that one tactic, you have to set up the audience, right, Cindy? Let me unmute you if you need. Okay. Wait.
So actually the way that you're going about it is totally fine.
Oh, okay. Talk to me.
As you mentioned, and we have a couple of members of AdLib on the call as well. During your onboarding process, the client success team will actually basically do what Ellen is doing right now, and we'll work with you to train you live as we're setting up your first campaigns. So things like, do we want to set up an audience first? Do we want to upload the creative first? Do we need a pixel? Those are all the types of questions that we'll ask you. As soon as those objects have been created, then as you showed, it will be available in your dropdown.
Okay.
So the way that the solution is constructed is that it is a one-to-many. So if you create a single audience, it can be applied to multiple campaigns. And as you're optimizing your program, in real time, if you need to make a change to that audience, it will propagate across all of your active lines.
Okay, got it. And you can see the audience. And so it's kicking me into the second app, right? So you guys can see still. Yeah, I should be sharing my whole screen right now. So it's good. Okay, cool. And so in this second app, it's the same interface. It's just, a different view. In this view, that's where you would set up the actual audiences. But here's the thing. It's like, I really am a big fan of rule-based settings, right? So if this happens, target. If this does not happen, don't target. Now, certain people call it Venn diagram, right? Like that's, I would say that's a little bit old school, older school vocabulary, like a Venn diagram of your audience. And so I think that's one of as a trader, that's one of the things I always would look forward to, is like, I do want to target chai tea lovers, but I only want them to be soccer moms. I don't know. That's just, or dance mom, because I'm one of them. So I think that's really good. So I'm not going to go ahead and I'm not going to set anything up right now, but I'm going to go back to the other one. And so obviously you have your budget, you have your agency margin, but I do like that there's an option for CPM or percentage, excuse me. And then you'll fill out everything like in any of your DSPs, and then add your creative and then save. And then I'll save under. But I guess I think the beauty, I know for a fact that the beauty of it all is that, okay, now you have that one thing, y'all. It's the one thing. Here's another error I have made as a trader. I'm about telling myself, you guys will not judge me because this is a safe zone. But adding multiple, let's say multiple targeting within one. Let me explain. I specifically remember, and I've done this error, adding like all the PMPs in the world into the same ad group and then still targeting the open exchange. That doesn't make sense, right? If you're going to target the open exchange, here's the thing, if you did not know, separate just this tactic, just this line item, targeting the open exchange, and then create a second one, maybe duplicate, clone, and then update, close the open exchange, close the, turn off the water faucet there, and then only select the PMPs that you want to run off, okay? But that's a hack if you did not know. Why do we not combine? Because the engine, because at the end of the day, this is like a car. It's like whatever you put in, the engine is going to pour money into where is based on those KPIs that you set up, so the conversion windows, and then based on the performance. And so open exchange will probably be more cost efficient, cheaper, and so probably pour more into the open exchange. But at the same time, some PMPs have higher base bids, which is one of the most asked questions during our workshop, is like, how do I know which base bid to start with? Here's the answer, is that most of the time, our lovely DSP support teams have the secret cheat sheet for you. I cannot tell you that all retargeting should start at $12 CPM. All audio should start at 23. I cannot tell you this. It has to be based on your strategy. Again, those 4 things I mentioned. It has to be based on many factors. But this is how you maximize the partnership with your DSP, is that you ask those type of questions. You pull them into the conversation, just like what Cindy said, as part of your onboarding, and you ask them, like, what is your recommendation of a base bid for a behavioral conversion base, whatever targeting line item, for instance. And then they will let you know base bid and max bid. But I do want to say that they have auto optimization, so you can let it test. And in your reporting, then you set afterwards, depending on what you have, right? Because sometimes you have to stay below a certain CPM window. Anything you want to add, actually? Iesha, while I sip on the water.
No, I think you've covered pretty much everything. Is like relying on rules of thumb, like you said, CTV is going to be X CPM and audio is going to be Y CPM isn't correct. And sometimes some things do have to be tested where possible. Utilize, reports and forecasting in order to get a best guess, and ask around too. Honestly, sometimes I go on Reddit, I go on the AdOps or Programmatic subreddits, and I'll say, who's seen how this is trending? And sometimes I get good feedback. But often, sometimes, you might have very specific first party audience or very specific niche you're looking to target, and there's just no guidance for that. So it's all about testing and learning.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And again, shout out to the whole AdLib team that has joined again. I think Cindy, I just saw your name popped up and I was like, oh, no, there it is. So anybody can join into the conversation, by the way. I would also say that maybe the DSP team is going to be like, oh, wait a minute now, partner. But if you do reach out to them and they say, let's start at a $3, maybe at 15% of that, just to be a little aggressive in your targeting, okay? Because the best way they're doing it is they're almost like doctors, right? The doctor is going to ask you questions before it can tell you, like, maybe you should lay off, the butter in your eggs, or I don't know, maybe you should slow down on the number of espresso you're getting in a day. But they'll ask you a question. Like, the doctor cannot tell you to slow down the espresso. That's the source of your high blood pressure, and you're hella stressed because you're literally drinking 6 cups of espresso a day. That's not healthy, right? But he's gonna have to, or she's gonna have to ask you, how many cups of coffee are you drinking in a day to get to that? Obviously, this is a very simple example. So that's how our DSP support team is. It's like, they're going to ask you all these questions and then formulate best. But it's up to you to know, oh, but I want this result, so I'm going to go for it. So if the doctor is telling me, like, maybe drink 1 espresso or maybe take a break, I'm going to stop, listen. Maybe I'll layer up a little bit more of, I don't know, water to hydrate a little bit more, right? So I'll do that because I know it's healthy. So that's what I'll say. So again, maybe the DSP team is going to look bad, but that's what
actually, I'll just say one last thing just to on that out. And everything you're saying is absolutely fair and correct. The AdLib team is actually happy to run forecasts for you based upon your campaign details. So talking to your peers, doing your own research. But if you have the campaign information and specifically your budget and your targeting criteria, we're happy to actually do that for you so that you have an idea of what that recommended CPM, should be. Also, as everybody knows, DSPs are always going to try to clear at the cheapest rate. So you do choose, and I agree with everything that both of you had said in terms of test and learning. The system is not, we're just going to push that down to the appropriate seat. So the DSP is going to do its best to clear at the cheapest rate. So you can get those learnings of, we had the hypothesis that we could clear at this rate, and actuality, whether it be time of year, the inventory that you're targeting, et cetera, it's 2x more. And that's a good learning. That's a good data point in that moment in time.
For sure. And that's what we want. We want to be able to learn from our testing, right? Test and learn. That's the drinking keyword today. Just drink water right now because you probably are at work. So any questions from my programmatic ninjas, drop it in the comments area again. Or you can request to unmute as well. I can do that. Questions?
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Sometimes clients give us a limit that you have to serve 400K impressions and my budget is $400. Then like $300. Then how we can calculate CPM because client cannot directly tell us that you have to keep this CPM range.
So I can help answer at least from the lens of AdLib. In the campaign details, there is an impression goal field that's optional, always optional to fill out. And then the system will use that as its target to drive, right, your program. So it's going to look at the total campaign budget relative to the impressions. So typically, right, how DSPs will deliver is if you do not include a max CPM, right, then the DSP will deliver and stop when one of two things happen. Either you meet your budget amount or you meet your impression amount. If you are monitoring the campaign, right, in real time and determine that you're not getting as many impressions as you would like, or you're spending too much money, that's where you can insert the max bids. There's also a functionality of including frequency capping or daily spend to help kind of throttle, how the campaign will deliver. The default, right, always being it's going to try to deliver as evenly as possible across the flights. So the good news is that the system can accommodate any combination. The art is, how you want to proceed with that, up before the campaign starts, while the campaign is running, and then right before the campaign ends.
I miss whoever just spoke, but I left in the comment area our email. Send us an email because I feel like we need to look a little bit more into your questions because there is some numbers that are not, like the math is not mathing, but that could be something like another conversation, okay? So make sure you email me and let me know, like, hey, during the workshop, I asked this question, and then we can talk, you and I. Okay, so Niles, I think you had a question. And then we'll go into the second part of the workshop, which is about QAing. Hi, Niall.
Yeah, hey, what's up? I am so sorry I'm very late. I was just taking care of some stuff, but yeah. I don't know if it's a question or open-ended, but whether an AdLib or any other DSP, DV360, Trade Desk, Vistar, whatever, have you seen it where, let's say, a DSP prioritizes their own exchanges? I have done that to where when I was running across 3 different DSPs, I did a test to where I set up multiple ad groups and line items. I would then select a certain few exchanges per line item or ad group, making Google for Google, and then I put other ones. I would even put higher bids or higher CPM thresholds on the non-Google ones. And then when I pull a post-campaign report, I still notice a higher traffic and impression volume still went to Google Ads, let's say, even though I like deprioritized them. So in that case, if we are seeing that, let's say these companies they're trying to put more money into their own product, would it help to boost, let's say, a CPM efficiency and to get more traffic just by separating the exchanges and SSPs in the line items or ad groups?
I can answer this one. What you are describing is correct and is a known phenomenon. Particularly, I will go ahead and say the elephant in the room with Google.
So Google.
It is very common with Google. Why this is common with Google and what sometimes people do not know is those audiences that we all know and love from Google, movie lovers, custom affinity, those audiences are only able to be transacted on Google Ad Manager inventory. So if you are using those audiences for targeting, you will default to GAM.
That's great. That's a great point.
So that's the first thing you should look at is, are you only utilizing audiences that are in with that particular DSP's tech stack, right? Are they third-party audiences or are they first party? Because if they're first or third party, then I agree with you looking at, maybe breaking out your different SSPs or playing with your CPMs may be a better choice as a first line of defense. But if you are using audiences or specific settings in some cases that belong and are the exclusive property of that DSP's tech stack, you will default to that DSP's SSP family. So another example is active view in DV360. If you have active view pre-bid enabled, like 70% viewability, and you're using the active view button, it'll default to GAM.
Yep. Okay, that's what I figured. Yeah, I just want to get your perspective because I've even kind of called them out during the some emails, and they kind of gave me like a long-winded corporate answer, and I was like, okay, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's common with Google. Other DSPs also have, owned and operated settings and things that they own that also maybe in some cases will favor an SSP within the same tech family and stack. But yeah, with Google, there's definitely like little particularities to be aware of. So yeah, it's good to be aware of, and a lot of folks don't know. I will say Google is choosing to open this up over the past couple of years and has started to allow other SSPs access to their audiences and to active view, but it is only a select couple. It is not the entire stack of SSPs. I think Google has 65 at last count that exist, right? Are they allowed to be hooked into the DSP, DV360? But only as I'm aware of 2 or 3 are able to get some access and be able to be tracked. Let their audiences, be tracked across those other SSPs. So just something to be aware of, folks. It's definitely a thing. You're not making it up, or you shouldn't feel gaslit into understanding like why is this DSP and SSP favoring each other. There are usually reasons why.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I've never, I'm not on any one side on anything. I'm just always, hey, I want to make sure it's right. But and then I'm also interested to how this is going to change in the next couple of years since DOJ is looking up into splitting Google and how is that going to affect everything from the DSPs, data integrations, and access. But we will see.
Listen, I would, and I've done this as a trader, and sometimes I still recommend it, right? Like when we work with traders, whether you're junior level, senior, it doesn't matter. If it feels safer to separate, then you feel like you do that. Separate those exchanges, separate those PMPs. You don't need all exchanges. Oops, did I say that out loud? I'm gonna say it again. You don't need to bid. You don't need to bid everywhere all the time. You don't. You just don't. You can select 1 to 3 to maybe 4, 5-ish exchanges and really maximize it. Okay, that's where the test and learn comes into play. Again, take a sip of water, guys. You need to take the time to do that analysis, and we'll talk more about the optimization next week. We'll cover optimization in 15 minutes. That's one of our most popular workshops. It's been 2 years we've been offering this. People love to understand, if I only have 15 minutes to optimize, how, where, what, and how would I do it? So we'll do that next week with a live example of a report and everything. But like, maybe you just need to do that, separate them, understand it. Now I do have to preface that there are some data visualization tool that can help you maybe automate that. I know that some DSP do it as well. So you just gotta, play with it. But if it's safest or feel more comfortable to separate, let's go ahead and separate. So now let's lead into the next part of this conversation is that in order for you to even do what we briefly looked into it in AdLib, because there's a reporting section we'll do in 2 weeks, right? So I'll show you the reporting and the tracking session in the next workshops. But before you can even do that, how do you even keep track of it all? I always like to recommend one holistic document, which is the media map. You can call it media plan, you can call it map. It comes in different format. All media maps are not created equal. It could be Excel, Word doc. First of all, it should not be in the Word doc, but anyway, Excel, Word doc, and I hope it's not in emails, which I've worked for agency before who would send this information in emails, separate it, put it in Excel, okay? I don't know if you can tell I'm an Excel bay, but anyway, whatever. So shout out to our next sponsor here, Atomic Ads. I'll share brief information about Atomic Ads in a hot second, but let me show you what I mean by a media map. So now I sent, excuse me, what was it? It's a bonus training via your video, via your email. So if you have not seen the 15 minutes video where I walk you through in details of this document, it is in your workbook. You'll see it everywhere. It's on YouTube, on our YouTube channel as well. Why do we push for media map is because, again, this is where everything should be hosted. So I'm not going to go through everything, every tab in details because you can get it. I'm going to skip to the QA in a second, but basically it's things like the client's name, the target geo. But how many times have you been on a call and you don't even know the name of your point of contact, whether it's internal or external? Like, who is the account manager on this? I think it's this. Oh no, it's this person. Oh no, it's this person. No. Who? Put it down, hold them accountable the same way that you'll hold the trader accountable, the sales rep, the media strategist, whatever you call it these days. And so this information is important. Now, phone number, some of us don't like that. It's up to you. This template, I need you to make a copy, download it, finesse it to your agency or remix it to your client's needs or to your brands. It doesn't matter. But it's just a template and it's very intensive for this matter because you're supposed to add and remove or just delete what you don't need, okay? So like general information is pretty self-explanatory. Most of us run multiple channeled, how would you call it? Media mixed campaigns or brands with multiple channels. These days it's different names, but basically you might have a search, social, and programmatic to that. And sometimes you may even have traditional. But anyway, so the second tab is media plan. So usually this is where your actual media plan would be. This is information that's filled out during a kickoff call, like who is who, how is what. Notice how I have over here like gross versus net, because some agency will sell the gross number, but take their piece out. And so that's important to notate in this internal document. Omnichannel or addressable media. Yes, omnichannel was super sexy. Like it's a super sexy term, and it still is. I hear it everywhere. So the media plan is where you copy paste, or depending on your agency. Media details is actually like during your kickoff call with your AM. Like, what did you tell the clients? This information can also be shared from like the pre-sale sheet. I think some company has the sale onboarding or whatever it is. Like you can actually find out this brand, favorite client or favorite customers or patients look like this. What's the persona? And then you fill it out and then you go translate it into your DSP. Here's one thing I always push for is that maybe don't delete this tab. Maybe push everybody to do a tab like this, because again, when we do an optimization workshop with our agency, a brand's in-house team, anybody, we always ask like, okay, so what's your conversion? Let me see. They'll go in the DSP, like in AdLib, and they'll pull the conversion via this pixel view. Okay. And so for the sake of example, let's say if the agency was selected, the advertiser is selected, one advertiser is selected, all of those pixels would be set up, but you also see like, oh, yesterday, today. Most DSP have that. But this is where you will let the rest of the team know the contact us form is the most important, is how we're optimizing our CPA. CPA of 75 is contact us form submission. This is the website we're tracking. Why? Because I don't know, the account manager can come 3 months later and be like, yo, what were we doing? They can come to this and say, oh, we sent all of our retargeting message to this particular one because it was our primary goal, right? Oh, it should be in here actually. Tactic changes, this is just an extra tab because one of the agencies I worked with, sis, they will have 1,005 revision. And I'm like, why? An optimization should not always be a revision. Why are we doing all of this, right? We all worked with a client that required like approval with everything. Now, in some, I would say in pharma, you need approval with everything, right? But sometimes it's not called a revision again. And so that's what the step is here. But let me bring you here to this QA sheet. I'll go ahead and give my we're going to talk about QA, okay? And then we're coming in on an hour. So we have about maybe 15, 20 minutes left of this workshop. We're going to go through the QA. But again, drop your comments, ask to unmute. Iesha is helping me monitor the comments area. For this reason, oh, I have a misspell here. Oops. And who QA'd this deck? Unacceptable. I need a QA checklist. That was me. But anyway, so shout out to Atomic Ads. Atomic Ads are fantastic. They looked at the traders' #1 challenge, which was those campaign launch and settings challenges, and they automated that stuff. So I'm going to give you a view of the tool in a hot second. But before that, I wanted to walk you through a checklist that they created. So I started with that one checklist that I was just in. Let me click on the tab. Okay, there it is. And it started with the checklist. Obviously, their checklist is probably a little bit more intense because there's a lot. But it started with a checklist, and then they were like, there has to be an automation. It has to be automated. And then they created a tool, and then all you have to do is plug, set up once. And then every time there's a live campaign, it'll tell you right then and there what to do. So let's see this. So we have a QA list per platform, y'all. Did you hear me? It has to be a QA. You have to have your QA checklist per platform. There's no negotiating. Oops, Hélène, are you sure? We have 6 of them. Yes, I'm sure. I'm sorry, but you just do. You just got to do it, okay? And so for some of those platforms, let's just pick DV360, for instance. You'll have the booking details, the brand safety, the tracking, the creative. And so it was categorized this way, but it's literally a QA sheet should almost, the QA sheet should almost be like a paper where if you didn't know how to set up or how to get started setting up in a DSP, you could look at your QA sheet and be like, are the flight dates correct? Yes or no? Oh, let me go ahead and start with my flight date. Where's the flight date? On my medium plan or on my medium app. Boom. Do you guys see how it all connects, right? Like everything has to be in one. And the beauty of having it in one doc, called the holistic doc, the medium map, is because then you can just toggle between those tabs. Because how many times have you had Asana open or Basecamp or Trello or ClickUp, whichever that is, your email, your Slack, okay, or your GChat, let's say if that still exists these days, this Excel, your text messages, just to be able to create to set up the campaign. How many of us? Like raise your hand inside your room. Cool, I'm one of them. This is why this document is important. So again, you have access to this. It is in your, pretty sure it came with the bonus training. It's on YouTube. It's in your workbook. You can leave, let me know. You can email me. I can send it to you. It's literally something where you have to make a copy and then, and then do your thing. But you should definitely use something like this internally if you don't have any, per the DSPs. Same thing with ad servers, right? Campaign manager is one of them. So I see some chats here. Are those questions? Let me see.
Nope, we're all set.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So let me show you what it looks like when you automate this bad boy. I know that what we're sharing right now is like, yo, honestly, as a trader, I'm about to tell myself, but this is a safe space to do so. As a trader, I hated QA. I did not like it. It just took so long. It just took so long. And so I really wish I had somebody like Atomic Ads, because what we had was several Excel sheets, but it's all good. Now you live and learn, right? And now we do better. So here's Atomic Ads. It's super easy. When you first log in, you know, I'll ask you, obviously, when you first log in, the first thing it's going to ask you is like plug into AdLib, plug into the DSP you're using. It can plug into, I'm going to say it out loud, but most of the DSPs in the industry, if not all of them. Okay. And so I can say that confidently, probably all of them. But the beauty is this right here. Like, this is a demo account again. So if you're looking at this as just a demo account, right? Those are not campaign money. This is safe to share. But because before you can even get to a dashboard like this, that lets you know, like, yo, there's one threat. The health score is obviously letting you know, like, is this set up correctly? Yes or no? If it's not, you need to have 100% here. 100%. I don't know if 97 is even good, even though it's in green, but you have to have close to 100% set up correctly. And so before you get to here, pretty sure you come into here, you have to set up your rules, you have to set up everything. So everything that you see in that previous dashboard has been set up at least once. And so you can recognize some of them, like campaign setup under the right advertiser. Have you ever ran a campaign? Have you ever ran an ad under the wrong advertiser? Sis, let me tell you, I did in Meta, Facebook. It wasn't in a DSP, okay? But I ran a competitor's ads under the wrong advertiser in Instagram, y'all. So the Facebook was correct, but Instagram had the competitor of that. It was automotive. I've done that, okay? But you don't have to worry about it, because now you can connect even Facebook, you know, Instagram, AdLib, I don't know, Trade Desk, DV, all of them. You can connect into here. So there's a setup. Okay, everything there's a setup. Is going to take time, but I would rather take 1 good hour one time versus, what did you say the other day, Iesha? Like 10 hours every campaign to set up, because I keep making the same mistakes. And so part of those you'll even recognize that are into the sheet that I was showing you, which is what, this one, yeah. And so some of these, literally, you can have the Atomic Ads team say, yo, this is my checklist, can you automate it? And they'll do it for you, okay? So that's the positive about that one. I really like this one because it has campaign, insertion order, line item, creative, actions, yes or no, edit. You can add a new rule anytime. Let's say if there's a new process that come out that maybe your traders keep forgetting to add the margin, like you can add, was the margin set up correctly? The margin is 25% for most of the campaign, and you know, for the one-off, it's a one-off. So that's what that is. So going back to the dashboard. Yeah, so going back to the dashboard, so it will say one threat, 4 warnings, anomalies. Anomalies is, you can look at it in the opportunity dashboard. Anomalies will be like something like, it's still loading, by the way. Is the naming convention correct or no? Oh, no. Okay. Well, you can't see the opportunities, but the opportunities are really exciting, and I'll show y'all again next week. But the opportunities would say something like, oh, it looks like this is targeting this audience segments. Have you considered that? So it'll give you like a light version of what I'm describing in terms of like opportunities. It looks like you are targeting at $12 CPM. The PMP floor price is 11, maybe increase to 13. I don't know, something like that, based on competitiveness, something like that. So this is really, really important to do, okay? Because first, it holds everybody accountable. So those are all traders on your team. You are either the lead or you are a junior. This is the perfect way to learn the DSP is to be in it, doing things, setting up, updating, uploading your creative, understanding this, clicking throughs, making sure all the click throughs make sense, matching the naming convention. If you come into one, you can probably reduce 10 hours of your day, right? Or I think it says that it helps you save what, 20 to 30 minutes. But for some of us, let's be real, that takes hours. It took me hours because one, I was not motivated. I was just not motivated. Anyway, I was a good trader, y'all. I swear. I made a lot of mistakes. That's why I'm an excellent trader. I learned the hard way. But another thing that we probably did not mention is like naming convention. Please have your naming convention, yo. I've worked with clients before, and the ad group name was ad group 1, ad group X, line item B, all in one campaign. And I'm like, first of all, at least be consistent. If you're going to use the word ad group, the 1, 2, 3, not A, B, X, something else, right? But the reason why naming convention is important is because it has to match. The easiest way to QA starts with naming convention. Is this about chai tea audiences? If there's any chai tea lovers, let me know. I'm gonna send you some chai tea. Chai tea lovers. Audience say chai tea at least. Creative says chai tea. Boom. QAing, at least based on naming convention, it makes sense. It matches. That's why naming conventions are super important. But like you have to get through this process before you can even optimize. Prove me wrong. Like you have to. It does not matter. You cannot optimize, report on your campaign if you don't have those checked off. One of the things I always say too is like even before you optimize, you have to QA. That's one of the preliminaries steps is that, oh, you're about to start optimizing. Here's stuff you should do before you get to your Excel sheet, your report. You should probably schedule those reports in advance, have a note taker in QA. QA means the strategy, the conversions, the creative, all of the above.
We've got a question in the chat,
Okay.
Ellen, from Niles.
Yeah, I'm talking way too much because I've had way too much
I love it.
coffee already.
No such thing.
I guess with the QA, I've always found that even when I'm supervisor, when I even set up campaign, I have someone like two other people, a senior associate and an associate do it QA because one, we always have a habit of only seeing things from our view and to have a different set of eyes might catch something that we normally would miss. And I know I make mistakes because we're all human beings. As long as we correct the big stuff, okay, the minor stuff we can correct and change when the campaign launches. And two, with the taxonomy naming convention, I just usually prefer to reach out to the client or advertiser or your internal analytics team and say, hey, how is this being reported? Is this going to be traffic in some type of way with the tags? And it
Yeah.
needs to match then reporting, billing through Prisma and MediaOcean. Or if the client has specific like creatives to do like a rotation, like, hey, like what is your guys' reporting view or what do you want to see? And that way I will name the tags to then match the reporting setup, the ad group name, campaign name, and taxonomy, whatever.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And I think, again, I know for a fact the at Atomic Ads people have at least been a trader or worked in ad ops or worked for media hold company or worked for independent agencies or brand. Because just like what you said now, it's like all of these are super important, but sometimes not up to us, right? Like you said, it has to be the client confirmation, or if you're using an ad server or like, which one did you said? The Media Oceans of the world. Can't believe it.
Yeah, MediaOcean, Prisma. I hate them. I will say it right now.
But we hate them because it takes a lot to set up, right? Or what?
Set up, and when you have to reconcile an invoice
Oh,
through
yeah.
them for 5 cents, and it requires
I
having
tried
to get everything redone.
Yeah.
I think it's also worth pointing out that an atomic adds type QA process for these sorts of naming conventions can catch things that the human eye maybe wouldn't be able to catch. For example, if there are spaces between words and you accidentally double press the space bar, that's going to be almost impossible to catch with your eyes, especially if you're scanning over several hundred placements that need to be uploaded into a Prisma or a Radia. So that's very difficult to ascertain and see. But luckily, computers don't have that problem, and being able to like read that and say, hey, there's this IO name is actually incorrect. And we might be looking at it saying, well, it looks fine to me, but notice it'll be like, no, something's wrong. There's something incorrect here. And then maybe you can just, we'll get into the Excel thing later, but that's maybe when a trim is helpful, using a trim formula or something like that. So there are all these sorts of really cool things that I think that these sorts of automated types of QA software supports help that I wish I had had 10 years ago when I started, because there were many incidents like this where I used the wrong dash, or I used an M dash instead of an N dash, or an underscore, or like I said, or double spaces, and I shouldn't have done, and I couldn't catch them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember specifically, and that was back in 2015, y'all, but like Domo was the data visualization tool we used. So it's just a reporting tool. And Domo, back in the days, if you had, just like what Iesha said, if you had a dash and it was supposed to be like a plus sign, right, in the formula or the naming convention, it will shut down everything. Now, that was back in the days. I'm sure Domo has improved. I haven't worked with them in a while. I'm sure they've improved. But it's this, the little nuance like this is that you don't even have to know about this because it's already taken care of. And just so y'all know, I don't know if you can see my screen. Yes, you can see that sometime a good old on my computer, I have a Mac, is Command F find, Control Alt F, which is Control Alt find. A good old this, and you copy paste from your media plan, let's say, you put it in here. Sometimes it's the easiest way to also, make sure that the naming convention was not used twice. These little tricks you can still use. Like it don't have to be that complicated. Use your tools the best way. Like I said earlier, you got to maximize your DSP support, right? Ask AdLib about those things when you want to work with them or if you're working with them. But like sometimes use your tool in front of you to really help you do a better job. It don't have to be complicated for you to feel like you've earned your keep. You can be smart, not work as hard and smart. You know what I mean? And so using this trick has saved me so many. Like I would literally like copy paste from my MediaOcean sheet, which is, it was called something else back in the days. Was it called Advantage? No, it wasn't. Never mind. But copy paste from your MediaOcean into your DSP, into your media map. And then I would have this the whole time on. And I'll toggle back between between tabs. And then I'll be like, okay, at least the same naming convention is correct everywhere. Now let me dig into it. Let me open, check under the hood, because that's another QA that you have to say. You cannot stop at the naming convention. Make sense? Okay, so let me go ahead and get back into, we'll get to see a little bit more of this tool. Honestly, I feel like Atomic Ads should charge like millions of dollars for this because it's such a fantastic tool, but they're not, just so you know. And they're offering every single one of you, I think it's 30 days to try this tool. Shucks, I hope it's 30 days. Well, they'll honor it because I said it now. But I think it's between 2 weeks to 30 days of this tool. So make sure you holler at them, okay? Make sure you holler at them. And like I said, they can plug into everywhere, including even social platforms. So I know we skipped over one skills one. So if we have time to do one more QR, like the one, we can. But let's discuss QA. And I was supposed to tell y'all where we were in the workbook, but I totally, hopefully you were following up. But talk to us about this one.
Okay, we will see. We haven't got any votes just yet, but I will do a screen share.
Okay. Oh yeah, let me stop. All right, so click on it. Oh, can you remind me the question? Maybe I should let you know what the
Sure. So love to hear from you folks about one way you plan to improve your QA process based off maybe some of the things that you've heard today.
Like one thing. And it doesn't have to be, don't overcomplicate this, y'all, please. Oops, now you have the whole thing. There you go. There it is. I had no idea this was a thing. It was not in the middle. Maybe share your favorite part of QA. I don't want to know the worst part. I can tell you a few.
So see, someone says expand the current QA template to make it more comprehensive. I can say from experience, I absolutely agree with that. For years, I had a very basic like QA template that was like, is geo correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and then as my campaigns got more complicated and I got more business assigned to me, that didn't work because I was dealing with campaigns that were sometimes very, very strictly geo-targeted by zip code in some cases, or if I was working in Europe, maybe they were done by a statistical area. And is it correct is subjective and it doesn't have a quantifiable input. So taking that extra time with your QA templates to put in the details you need that, yes, these are the 5 zip codes we are looking to target, or these are the 3 statistical metropolitan areas we're looking to target, is a much better use. Does it take an extra, 20 seconds to put that information in and then have someone cross-check it once they do the QAs? Absolutely. But it saves you from accidentally serving something out of geo just because if you don't put in the necessary detail on the QAs and in the QA documentation to pass through and communicate to whoever is QAing your work, that's when we start running into issues. So I absolutely agree. I think this is a really great example that whoever put this, I totally agree with you. And it's one way that I said I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any ideas for any ways that they plan to improve their QA process?
I'm gonna be emailing y'all asking. We'll hold each other.
I missed that QR code to enter it in, but I think one of the best things is to add in at least 48 hours of QAing
Yeah.
before you officially launch a campaign, and to bake that in with the SLA with the client team or strategy team, because a lot of times they think is like, oh, you guys are done, you can just launch it like right after. Like, no, it takes time not only to QA
Okay.
it, but also if you discover an issue and you have to, let's say, reach out to someone to acquire more information. And what if they're not in office? What if they're away? Or what if they're busy? It just takes additional time. And then, of course, the client's kind of reaming down your throat of like, can we hurry up and get this launched? We're not live. I'm like, yo, like, relax. Not being live for one day is out of a 4 or 5 month campaign is not going to kill you.
No.
But that's why I say like at least 48 hours. So it's like you discover an issue, you have 24 hours to solve it, and then you should be okay.
Absolutely agree with you there. Building in and setting those like standard operating times for building and QA is absolutely paramount. I think a rushed QA is usually a failed QA. And I will be honest that any time that I have seen catastrophic results, overspending, running out of geo, not applying an agency allow list or an agency block list, anything that would be considered as catastrophic failure that would require what this is the word we all probably hate to hear from clients is a make good, aka they want their money back, and that all that hard work that you put into running that campaign doesn't count and the agency has to eat that cost, has always happened in my experience on an exceptionally rushed QA or where a QA process is not robust enough. So
Yep,
absolutely agree with you there.
yeah, I give, and I told Helen this in our side chats, I give harsh examples because my past lives, I say, hey, would you want someone to hurry up and rush checking your airplane before it takes off? No, you take all the damn time that you want. And if there's an issue, cool, my plane's delayed for 5 hours. I would rather have that than to have an issue go up in the air at 30,000 feet. So the same thing goes with the campaign. We do a due diligence. We take the time to check everything and to make sure we have an efficient media running.
And I do agree. One thing that Niles that you pointed out that hasn't really been discussed, but that you mentioned is the idea that like DSPs are software, accidents happen, bugs happen, shutdowns happen, AWS fails and something can't be queried on the back end, stuff that is not necessarily in the control of the trader, but can delay a launch. Absolutely agree. Like building in that extra QA time gives everyone time to react, and if necessary, a way to get around the issue. If the issue is not resolvable within 24 hours, maybe it's time to do a quick pivot. So absolutely.
And I would add too, in terms of the SLA, is that that's why I always recommend, like, when you QA when you QA yourself, like, do it before you set live, please. Okay, before you activate, you QA, and then you have somebody QA. So on this checklist is not here, and I didn't catch it until now, but like usually there's a QA traders, yes, and then QA buddy. Like, I used to work for this agency. Actually, they hired us as consultant, and they had QA buddies. That means that that person was responsible for, no matter what, if the campaign was not activated on time, was the QA buddy on top of it? Was there any changes? It was up to the QA buddy to hop on a call with the trader and say, hey, why did you say that? Like, that don't make sense. And then fix it together based on their training or based on what they know of the campaign, right? And so there would be like a second tab. So like whoever is listening to this, like, add a second tab, put trader's name, because we have to hold accountability ownership, and then put the QA buddy's name. Sometimes it's not a QA buddy. Sometimes it's your associate director, your director, whoever it is. I've had independent agencies that I consulted for. This one was like maybe 2 years ago. They didn't have that many traders. They had like 3 traders maybe, and they were running a lot of campaigns. And so the account executive, like the account manager, stepped in to help the trader not set up, even though they knew how to, but to QA the work. I know that sounds risky, but sometimes you have to tap into that your team. Okay, guys, like, we're one team, one family. No, we're not. That's toxic. But like, you're one team. So like, if your trader is successful, you're successful, the client is happy, boom, there's more, there's more business kept in-house. And so add that extra one. Make sure you have some of the do's and don'ts. Make sure you have QA checklist for all of them, all of them. And then if you go through each, like, some of them, you'll be like, we don't need this. Yes, you do. Add it. Please add it. Please do. And then you'll see things like double verified programmatic analytics setup on, oh wait, not double verified, this DV360, sorry. DV programmatic analytics setup on CM360 site, see guide. Like, add the guide. Okay, and have one person on your team update that guide whenever, like Iesha mentioned, whenever there's an update somewhere. Okay, something like sometimes you'll see site retargeting audience. Like, it's I don't know, I can't remember what what there's two here, but it makes sense for at that time whenever I used it, I guess. And then don't be afraid to, like, standardize. Please standardize your stuff. If your CPM fee is 9 cents, add it, please. Your video is 45, add it. 45 cents, add it. Okay. The post checklist should always, like, 24 hours after, a day after, the full 24 hours. Okay. And so, like, if you're setting it at 4 p.m., you can check it at 8 a.m. the next day, but we recommend maybe wait a little bit. Obviously, it's as long as you check it, right? And something as straightforward as, or as fundamental as, like, are y'all spending? Is it any delivery anywhere? Okay. And then pace tracking. This question may be early for 24 hours, but come back and say it. And then I don't see it over here, but at one of the agencies I worked for way back when, it was screenshot included in the email confirmation? Were screenshots of delivery included in the project management tool, like a Basecamp or Asana or whatever? So even at that, here's the drive where all the screenshots are saved, so that the person can look at it 2 months from now and say, like, oh, it was saved here. Okay. So that's really, really important. Obviously, next week we're going to talk about campaign optimization. This is one of the most popular workshop I've done, whether it was paid, free, public, or private, is how to optimize in 15 minutes or less. This workshop is only 90 minutes. So please check your emails. because I will be sending you prerequisite videos so that when we hop into this, we hop into it. We go straight into this Excel sheet and then we dive into how to optimize, because I want to be able to optimize 4 things for you: data, site list. Maybe we'll start with site supply, data, frequency, okay, and recency. And then there's a 4th one that I forgot about. I think it's geo or something like that. So I want to be able to show you how to optimize. And then after workshop 2 is workshop 3. Whatever we did that second week, so next week, a week from today, we'll use to write the analysis. And then during that time too, I will be sending you prerequisite videos. Don't worry, it ain't no like 6-hour video. It could be 30 minutes, an hour max. Make time for it. You won't regret it. But with that said, same time, same place next week, same Zoom link, add it manually to your calendar. Sorry, I didn't know how to do the other one. I'll do it next time for the next one. But if you do have any question and still you have our email, you can book a call. It's free. It's free on Thursdays. No, I'm kidding. It's free all day. Book a call with us. Is there any questions? Amazing. You know, I vomited a lot. Oh, was there any questions?
Yes, I will ask on the email.
Okay, yeah, Mohammed, just email me, and then you and I can talk about it. I can walk you through some of the stuff. I've done that before, no problem, okay?
Thank
But
you so much.
of course, thank you all for coming. I know I vomited a lot. Please take a break from the monitor, go jump somewhere, do some jumping jacks, do some squat, move your body physically if you're healthy enough to do so, because your brain just captured a whole lot. Okay. And I know we have clients and advertisers demand, but please try to move. Okay. Feed your soul, keep drinking your water, and then you got this. As always, we're only one message away or one phone call away. Thank you so much for joining us, and then we'll see you next week. I'm going to stop the recording.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank